Level 1. The Premed student. You are 18. You chose this before you fully understood what you were choosing. Your mother is a nurse. You grew up watching her come home at midnight, smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. And something about that smell didn't repel you. It pulled you. You are at the University of Michigan on a partial academic scholarship. Biology, chemistry, physics, calculus, all in the first year, all at once. Your roommate is studying communications. He's asleep by 11. You are not asleep by 11. You are not asleep by 2. The first exam breaks a third of your class. You score an 87. It feels like failure until your professor tells you the average was 61. You recalibrate what failure means. That recalibration will happen many more times before you're done. You volunteer at the university hospital on weekends. Orderly work. You transport patients. You clean rooms. You hold a basin for a man who hasn't stopped vomiting for 6 hours and you don't look away. A resident notices. She doesn't say anything. She just stops looking through you. 4 years, 3.91 GPA, MCAT score, 519. 1 letter, 1 school. The University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. You open it standing in the parking lot of the hospital where you've been mopping floors for 2 years. You get in. You stand there for a long time before you move. Level 2, the medical student. You are 22. The first 2 years are classrooms and cadavers. You learn the body as a system of systems. You learn what goes wrong and why and in what sequence. You memorize more in a single semester than most people retain in a decade. The cadaver's name you will never know, but you treat the body like someone is still watching. Your lab partner thinks this is unusual, you think it is the minimum. 3rd year, you rotate through every department. Internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, obstetrics, then surgery. The first time you are in an OR, you are handed nothing. You hold a retractor for 4 hours while 2 attendings work a bowel resection. Your job is to hold the instrument steady and stay out of the way. Your back aches. Your feet ache. You don't move. Afterward, the attending looks at you and says, "You didn't complain." You say nothing. "Good," he says. That's the whole conversation. You choose surgery before the rotation ends. Level 3, the intern. You are 26. Residency begins July 1st. Every physician remembers that date, the day the title changes and the protection disappears. You are a surgical intern at UPMC Presbyterian, 80-hour weeks, sometimes more. You pre-round at 5 a.m., check every patient before your attending does, know every lab value, every overnight development, every complaint. You are expected to know before you are asked. The first time you lose a patient, it is a 67-year-old man named Arthur who came in with a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. The attending runs the case. You assist. Everything is done correctly. Arthur dies on the table anyway because the rupture was too extensive and he arrived too late. The attending closes, steps back, and says to the room, "Time of death, 2:47 a.m. Then he looks at you and says, "Go write the note." You write the note. You walk to the break room, you sit for 4 minutes, you go back to the floor. Nobody tells you how to carry it. You learn that the carrying is the job. Level 4, the resident. You are 28. You are now trusted with a scalpel, without someone's hand over yours. The ER sends up a 19-year-old with a stab wound to the abdomen. Your attending is in another OR. You make the call to open. You find a nicked mesenteric vessel bleeding into the abdominal cavity. You clamp it, you repair it, you close. The attending reviews your operative note the next morning. He reads it twice. He says your suture spacing was inconsistent on the closure. You say, "I know, I'll correct it." He nods. That's the feedback. That's all the feedback. The 19-year-old goes home 5 days later. Nobody makes an announcement. You see him in the elevator on his way out. He doesn't know who you are. That is exactly how it should be. Level 5. The chief resident. You are 31. You run the OR board now. You assign cases. You manage the junior residents the way your attendings once managed you, not with encouragement, but with precision. There is a second-year resident named Okoro who is technically gifted, but talks too much in the OR. narrating his own thinking out loud, filling silence that should be used for listening. You pull him aside after a case. The OR is a quiet room. You tell him, "Your hands speak, let them." He listens. By the end of the year, he is one of the best residents in the program. You do not tell him that. He doesn't need it. You watch his hands in the next case, and that is enough. Level 6. The attending. Emergency surgery. You are 3-3. You are now the one who gets called. Your pager does not care what time it is. Your pager does not care that you worked a 14-hour shift yesterday, or that you haven't eaten since morning. A trauma comes in, and you come in with it. The ER is your permanent address in every way that matters. A woman arrives by ambulance, unrestrained driver, head-on collision, blunt abdominal trauma, pressure dropping. You have the ultrasound probe in your hand before the paramedics finish their handoff. Free fluid in the abdomen. She's bleeding internally. You move. OR3 is open. She is on the table in 6 minutes. You find a splenic laceration that would have killed her in another 20. You repair what can be repaired. You remove what cannot be saved. She wakes up the next morning asking for her children. You are already in the next room, level 7. The trauma medical director. You are 39. You are responsible for the trauma program now, not just your patients, all of them. You review every case your department touches. You look for patterns, you look for gaps. A medication error surfaces in a post-op case. The nurse caught it before delivery. You call a department meeting. Not to assign blame, to understand the system failure that made the error possible. A younger attending pushes back. Nobody was hurt, he says. This time, you say. You rewrite the protocol. You present it at grand rounds. 3 months later, a hospital 2 states away adopts the same protocol after a near miss of their own. You will never know that. The work doesn't wait for you to find out. Level 8, the professor. You are 44. You teach now, not instead of operating, in addition to it. You stand in front of a room of third-year students who have the same look you had 20 years ago, focused, terrified, trying not to show either. You remember being them so precisely it almost disorients you. You tell them one thing on the first day. The patient in front of you is always the most important thing in this room, not your grade, not your attending's opinion of you, not your own fear. The moment you forget that order, this profession will teach you to remember it in a way you won't enjoy. Nobody writes it down. The ones who understand don't need to. Level 9, the department chief. You are 48. You run the department, 41 surgeons, budget cycles, credentialing reviews. A malpractice case involving a junior attending whose documentation was insufficient, not whose care was negligent. You spend 4 months untangling the difference in depositions and committee meetings. The junior attending keeps his license. The documentation policy changes across the entire hospital system. You go home that Friday and sit in your kitchen for a long time before making dinner. The work is mostly invisible now. That used to bother you. It doesn't anymore. Level 10, the last shift. You are 58. Your last shift ends at 7 a.m. on a Thursday. There is no ceremony. There is not supposed to be. You hand off your patients to the incoming attending, a woman named Dr. Reyes who trained under someone who trained under you, though she doesn't know that chain, and doesn't need to. You walk out through the ER. The doors open automatically the way they always have. You think about Arthur, the man with the aneurysm who died at 2:47 a.m. in your first year, whose name you still remember, because you decided early on that you would always remember the names. You think about the 19-year-old with the stab wound who went home not knowing your face. You think about Okoro, who is now chief of surgery at a hospital in Houston, whose hands learned to speak for themselves. You think about every protocol rewritten, every resident corrected, every room you walked into already knowing what needed to happen. The parking lot is quiet. The morning is cold. You drove toward people's worst moments for 30 years, and you did not look away. Nobody needed you to announce that. The work always knew.